Hello and welcome to the next episode of my channel where I'll be taking up the lesson The Sermon at Benares from class 10th book. Now in this chapter we are going to read about the life of Gautam Buddha, who was a prince, but there was something, there were some four sights which motivated him, inspired him to denounce his worldly life and become a monk. So, who was Gautam Buddha? So, as a prince, his name was Siddharth Gautama, and he was born in northern India, which is now a part of Nepal. At 12, he was sent for schooling, in Hindu scriptures, sacred scriptures, and 4 years later, he returned home and got married to a princess. They had a son and they had 10 years of royalty and blissful life. But at the age of 25, there were four things which totally changed his mindset. Those four things were a sick man, an aged man, a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. Now, these sight moved him so much that they forced him to think about, the reality of human life, and he decided to go around the world to seek enlightenment. He wanted to attain true knowledge, and in this endeavor, he sat under a banyan tree, which is known as the Bodhi tree or the tree of wisdom. And then he finally was able to attain knowledge after 7 days of sitting under the tree. Now, after getting enlightenment, Gautam Buddha preached his first sermon. What is a sermon? A religious speech at the city of Benares, where the Ganga is found, dripping and touching the feet of Benares. So, this chapter basically talks about Buddha's wisdom, what he had learned, his true knowledge which Buddha had attained after getting enlightenment. So, in this story, the sermon which Gautam Buddha delivers at Benares talks about a lady called Kisa Gotami, whose only son had died, and obviously she was unable to bear the pain of her son's death. So she kept on moving from one house to another, seeking for some kind of medical help, medicine, to revive her son, but obviously it is not possible to revive a dead one. But just to keep her happy and just to calm her down, a man said that he didn't have a medicine for her, but definitely he knew a physician who could revive her son, and he sent the lady to him, and he asked her to go to Sakya Muni. Sakya Muni, Buddha was also known as the Sakya Muni because he used to sit under the tree. So Kisa Gotami immediately went to Buddha and cried in front of him to revive, to cure her son. The Buddha was very calm and he just asked her to bring a handful of mustard seed. The lady was very happy, thinking that this task was not at all difficult. But then Gautam Buddha put a condition in front of her. He asked her to bring the mustard seeds only from a house where no one had lost a child, husband, parent, or friend. After this, Kisa Gotami still didn't lose hope. She went from house to house, and whenever she went to any house, the people, felt pity on her and said, "Take the mustard seed." But then the moment she told them about the condition, they were sad again. They asked her not to remind of the dead because the living were few but the dead were many. What did the people mean by this? The people meant that they had already, all of them had lost many loved ones in their family. So that is why the living relatives were very less as compared to the ones whom they had lost. So obviously Kisa Gotami could not get the mustard seed from any of the house. It's impossible to get a house where no one had died. Kisa Gotami became very tense and hopeless, and she sat on the street, looking at the lights. And at the night as the lights were flickering. What do you mean by flickering? The light doesn't extinguish all of a sudden. So it was getting dimmer, then bright, then dimmer and bright, and then finally it extinguished. At last, the darkness of the night was present everywhere. The night darkness prevailed everywhere. And this is when all of a sudden Kisagotami has an epiphany. What do you mean by epiphany? Epiphany. Epiphany means a sudden realization. What realization does she have? She understands that just like the light flickers and extinguishes, same happens with human beings. Their lives also flicker and they also extinguish. That means every human life perishes. Every human life dies. And that's when she realizes how selfish she had become in her grief. How had she become selfish? She was only thinking about herself, her love for her son. She was not thinking about her son's, freedom which he had attained, peace which he had attained after death. She was not thinking about the other people who had lost their loved ones, because death is common to all. And one who accepts this becomes immortal. One who surrenders all his selfishness becomes immortal. Now, does a person really become immortal? No. What does Buddha meant by this? He meant immortality means a person will be remembered forever. Not that he's going to live forever. So a person who gives up his selfishness, a person who surrenders his selfishness, a person who accepts that death is common to all becomes immortal. Buddha said, the life of mortal in this world is troubled and brief. That means those who are living on this earth constantly face some or the other kind of pain or suffering, and they are always under a threat of dying. After reaching old age, there is definitely death. But the thing is, from the day a person is born, he is always under the threat, fear of dying. Just like all the earthen vessels made by a potter end up getting broken. Nothing remains permanent in this life. Every life will end, definitely will end. And this is the life of mortals. Both young and adult, fool and wise, all are going to become a victim of death. So those people who overcome by death depart from life. So if for those people, who lose their loved ones, who are overcome by death, and whom you lose because of death, you cannot save him. Okay, a father cannot save his son, a kinsman cannot save his relatives. Relatives are left crying, lamenting, but you cannot bring a dead person back. You can only cry for them. We keep crying and our loved ones are taken one by one to the steps of death. We can't stop it. It is not in our hands. By crying, by lamenting, we are only destroying our peace of mind. We are only falling sick. Okay, so this is what Gautam Buddha tries to say, that the wise people do not grieve. Okay, they don't feel sad because they know death is inevitable. It cannot be stopped. It cannot be prevented. So what is in our hands? In our hands, we can only accept death. We can't get peace of mind by crying. We can't get the dead person back to life by crying. We will only make ourselves sick by crying, by lamenting. But those people who find peace do not lament, do not complain, do not grieve. They accept life as it is. Okay, and they are blessed. Now this chapter is highly impractical. It is not possible that we do not cry on, at our loved ones. But this is a sermon given by God. This is a sermon given by Buddha, because he doesn't want human lives to suffer. He doesn't want human beings to cry. So this poem can definitely be related with the ball poem, where the boy lost his ball, and he was overcome with grief. And here in this chapter, we have a lady who was overcome with grief on the death of her son. So I hope you have understood.